So today we are looking at practice test 56, and we are looking at game 1. So just if everyone can start getting there. So hi, I'm Caitlin. If I haven't met any of you before, I teach this class. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm seeing a lot of names that I recognize, so that's fun. So we're starting with this game. And can someone tell me just right off the bat, just glancing at it, what kind of game are we looking at here? Ordering? Yeah, very good. Very good. So yes, we are doing an ordering game. So let's see. Since it sounds like some of y'all are there, does one of you want to explain how you would start setting it up? Horizontal by hours. Yeah, that's how I would do it. So starting at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And would you guys label the hours? This is kind of a personal preference thing, but I'm curious.
Yeah, I did like 1P, 2P, 3P.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna put the numbers down there. So just like that, so we don't get mixed up. You don't have to do that. I don't usually do that. It's really whatever works best for your brain. So if that helps you make fewer mistakes, then it is totally worth the time. If it doesn't help you, then it is not worth the time. All right. So we have auditions beginning from 1 to 6 p.m. and we have our saxophonists. So F, G, H, J, K, and L. Okay. So does someone want to walk me through how they would diagram the first rule?
I did.
Go for it.
J-H.
Yeah. So Jackson is earlier than H. Perfect. Okay. How about someone go through the second rule? Yeah. G-K. Perfect. All right. Third rule.
I put like LG next to each other and then GL so that I knew that it could go either way.
Yeah. So I might do like a slash like that. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's how I would probably do it as well. Would someone do it differently? Just out of curiosity. Does anyone have a different way they would diagram?
Yes, I actually would diagram it as G and L together, but I put it in a box and then I would have arrows going in both directions.
Okay, so you would do it like that?
Exactly.
Yeah, perfect. So that's another way that we can do it. So whatever way makes sense to you. I think drawing it with the box would probably make me think it has to go G and L if I wasn't thinking about it. Like G first, even though I know that's not true. So I probably wouldn't draw it like that because that would mix me up. But if that makes more sense to you, I think that's a fantastic way to draw it. Okay. And it's also a little bit faster. So there's that. All right. And then the last rule, how would someone diagram that one?
J/L with a I guess you can say a line in between and then
like that?
Yep.
Yeah. Good. And I would also put a box around it so I know that like there's only one in between them. So it's not like it has to have at least one. Because it says exactly one. So that's just how I would note that. There are plenty of other ways that you could note that, or you might not have to, you might just remember that. Okay. So now I think it's time for deductions. So what are some deductions that we can make?
I see a deduction between the second rule and the third rule.
Oh, okay.
I did GL-K or LG-K.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to erase this so I can write it right next to it. So if we combine these rules, we get, I'm just going to put L and G before K. So now we know that there are two before K. We don't know the order, that's okay. And again, there are 20 million different ways you could write that. So I wrote that mostly because I didn't have enough room to write anything more than that, but whatever makes sense. So there's one deduction. What else do we see here? What other?
I also see a deduction between the first rule and the fourth rule, and I did JHL or LJH.
So L something, then J, then H somewhere?
Yeah, so I did JHL and then LH. Then LJH.
Okay, so that's less of a deduction because H doesn't have to go in any of those spots. All we know is that it has to be after J. So you're right. If J is the first one in rule 4, then H can go in that open slot, but it doesn't have to. It could go anywhere after that. It just couldn't go in the spot that's J or L. Does that make sense? So yes, you're right that H interplays with this rule, but there's not actually any deductions that we can make from that. We just have to keep it in mind when we're diagramming with that rule. Does that kind of make sense? Okay, so what are some other deductions that we can make here? Things like,
the
yeah, go.
diagram, maybe? Like, are you referring to the 1 to 6?
Yeah.
Okay, let's say that J can't be in last place, nor can G,
Good.
nor
So
L as well,
nor L. Why not L?
because I'm looking at the combination of rule 2 and 3,
Very good.
and that is why.
Yes, very good. And that's why we write down deductions like that. I heard you guys I overheard you guys talking a little bit about that in your study session earlier. So that's why it's super important that we're writing down our deductions rather than just thinking them in our heads. Because I probably wouldn't have remembered that when I was making deductions. All right, what are some other deductions that we can make?
I can also say that H and K can't be in first.
Good.
And then I would also say that K can't be in second either.
Very good. And why is that?
Because of the combination of rule 2 and 3.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone see anything else? No, nothing else. All right. So that's a good number of deductions. So now we know that that's true no matter what question we're looking at. So now we can move on to the questions. So looking at the first question, would someone like to walk me through how they would do that one?
I would do rules of deduction just by looking at the rules, which is, I guess what I can do is rule number 1, which is J is earlier than H. I look for an answer choice where H is actually before J, which
Okay.
is going to be choice D. So D is
Very
eliminated.
good.
And then I would look at rule number 2, which is G auditions earlier before K. So then I would look for a position where K is before G. So that would be choice B. So B is
Very
out as well. Then I would look at a placement, it says Gabrielle auditions immediately before, immediately after L. So anytime where, I mean, a place where there's a break between G and L. So
Mhm.
then I get the remaining choices, which is A, C, and E. Let me see. A seems to be the case, so A is out as well.
Good.
And then I would look at it that there should be one audition separating J and L. So that
Mhm.
leaves choice C and E. And C breaks it.
Good.
Then that
So
leaves choice E.
choice E. Very good. So does everyone understand how we're going from rule to see which answer choice breaks that rule? So starting with rule 1, just like, I think it was Diana speaking, just like she did, and then going to rule 2, seeing what that eliminates. So this type of question you should be able to get right every time, as long as you figured out originally what the rules said. So as long as you weren't confused on the rule itself, this type of question should be an easy check for you. Okay. Let's see. Sorry, I can't quite switch to the next question for some reason. Aha, let's put that somewhere else. Okay. So, does anyone have questions about the first question before we move on? That should be fairly straightforward, but we can go over it if anyone needs to. Okay. I do not see anything, so let's move on to question 2. Could someone walk me through how you would do question 2?
For 2, I just used the deduction that we also made earlier. Yeah, so the one with the LG has to be before K.
Good. So what answer is that?
B, L is scheduled to audition earlier than K.
Very good. So because we made that into a deduction, we know that it must be true. It has to be true. There is no situation in which L will not be before K. So some of the other ones, maybe they might be true, or they could never be true. But B is the only one that must be true. Does that make sense to everyone how we got that? So that was the deduction where we combined rules 2 and 3. Everyone cool with that one? That went nice and fast because of the deductions. Very good. Okay. Question 3. Could someone explain this one?
Yes.
Mhm.
So based on the deductions earlier, the earliest that K can possibly be is 3 p.m. because K can't
Okay.
be first, nor can it be in second.
Right, good. But do we know for sure that K can be in 3?
I would say, I mean, I think it can. Let me check and see. I'm gonna double check.
It could be 5 p.m.
So we want to start because we're looking at the earliest. We want to start from the lowest numbers. So
Mhm.
we know it can't be 1 or 2 because those were deductions that we made. But we
Yeah.
can't decide right off the bat that it could be 3 because that's a deduction that we could have missed. So we want to check it first. So do that together. So we're saying K is in 3, which means we need LG here. What else does that mean?
That is an issue because it breaks rule number 4.
Oh, does it have to break rule number 4? Can we figure out a way where it doesn't?
No, that'd be difficult because you have to have two, you have to have L and G before K or inverse, or it can be G and L, whichever.
Right. So if it's GL, where would J
Yeah.
go?
K can go in 4. I see. Okay, so it can be.
Okay, so if it's GL, then J can go in 4th. And then where would H and F go? Does it matter?
No, it doesn't matter.
Nope. So it can be like that. So this follows all of our rules. J is before H, G is before K, L and G are right next to each other, and there's one space in between L and J. So yes, we've confirmed that K can be in spot and at 3 p.m. So what we're learning from this is that, yeah, if you were super in a rush, it's fine to just click on 3 p.m. and go if you genuinely don't have time to do it. But otherwise, the best bet for this is to double check whenever you can. Because it's super easy to miss deductions like that, where you just don't realize that it can't actually go in 3. So it's not necessarily the best idea to just go off of the deductions that you made at the beginning. You did happen to be right though. So, all right, I'm gonna keep that there as an example. Okay. So if everyone got that, the correct answer is C, 3 p.m. Because when it's in 3 p.m., you see we have a situation where it works. All right. Number 4. Can someone walk me through this one?
I can do this one for number
Sure.
4. I think I picked C.
Okay.
Yeah, because J could go on 5.
Okay.
Determine, sorry, and it would determine the rest of them, yeah.
Okay. So let's test that one out. Okay. So we're saying that it should determine the rest of them if J is on 5. So why don't you all walk me through what that would look like? So from there, what do we know?
So, H has to be after J. So in that one, that goes there. And then, the JLK block, I put in front of J. I'm trying to remember if there's a specific reason why. And then I had F in 1.
Okay. So we know that J and L need to have 1 in between them. So if we have J in 5, L has to go there in 3. Okay.
Yeah.
We know that L and G have to be before K. So where does K have to go?
Oh yeah, after the GL block. That's probably why I put F in 1. Okay.
After L, yeah. So
Yeah.
K go here. And then where does G have to go according to rule 3?
2.
In 2, good. So then we're left with F in 1. Good. So it definitely looks like that fully determines it. Because we have the time, I want to take a look at some of the others. Because in most situations, you won't see the one that fully determines it right away. So I want you to start by looking at A. Herman's audition is scheduled to begin at 4 p.m. So before we even diagram it, does that look like something that would determine the whole thing? You're slightly biased because now you know the answer, but.
Yeah, no, I think the reason why I didn't pick A is because J and L could go anywhere before H. So I knew, like, it didn't determine the placement of those. So.
Okay. Yeah, so it doesn't determine, if it doesn't determine, sorry, I'm just going to draw it to explain. But yes, you got it. So what we know is that it would be JL like that, right? And then we know that G would be in the middle because it has to be next to an L. But what we have no idea about is the order of these two here. Right? So I think that's what you were expressing. So it could be J first, it could be L first. The rules don't care because K and H will still be after them. So that's all we need. So yes, exactly. So it's definitely not A. So now looking at B. How does B look to you all? Can anyone, before even diagramming it, think of a reason why it might not work? So let's try diagramming it then. So Jackson's audition is scheduled to begin at 1 p.m. Okay, what can you all tell me from there? What do we know about the next piece?
That L would have to be in third.
Good. Okay, L is in third. What else do we know?
That G can either be in second or fourth.
Good. Anything else?
I would say, I mean, you still are left with, I mean, there are so many options you can choose from, like with F and H could be in
Right.
any placement, so it doesn't really determine anything. There's just too many open options.
Yeah, exactly. So all we really know beyond what you said is that K can't go right here because it has to be after L and G. That's it. So B really isn't helping us here. We're really not determining very much. Does that make sense to everyone? So none of the other rules are getting us there. Okay. How about D? Does anyone see why D might not work? Does anyone see it, or should we diagram it? All right, we can diagram it. So L is scheduled to begin at 1. So we start with L there in 1. What do we know from there?
J would be on 3.
Good. And what else do we know?
G can be in second or fourth place, same thing.
Can G be in 4th place?
Well, actually, let me think about that. No, actually, it's in second place. Sorry.
Yeah.
That was,
You're good.
Let's see. And you pretty much can have your pickings with HF, and what was the remaining variable? I think and K.
Yeah.
You can have your pickings with the remaining variables.
Yeah, exactly. They can go wherever we want them to because all the things that need to go before them are already there. So, okay, D really doesn't work. Then our last option is E. Okay. So E looks to me like it might be kind of a similar situation, but let's see. So we have L at 2. And then we have, what else do we have from there? If L is at 2.
J would have to be on 4.
Good. All right. What else can you tell me?
I guess, well, G could go before or after L, but I
Good.
mean,
Okay. What about H? Do we know anything about H?
it could go anywhere after J.
Yeah. So either of these could be H. So does this really determine everything for us if L is at 2?
No.
Yeah, I'm thinking not. We've got a lot of random things that can go in different places. So it's not E. So, like we had already concluded, our answer is C. So when J is in 5, everything has to be the way that it is. So that was this one here that we're looking at when J is in 5. Okay, so the answer for 4 is C. Okay, 5 p.m. I'm getting all mixed up with the numbers and the times. Sorry, 5. Question 5. Does someone want to walk me through how they would attack this one?
I just started trying them out and the first one was right, so it saved me time, but
Good. So the other way that we can look at this is a really good way to look at our past examples. So the past things that have worked. So I can look and see, well, do I have something where F wasn't first? Oh, I do. This one worked here. Do we remember that? That's something where F wasn't first. Well, now I can look and see. Well, H could be at 6. We're good, that's perfect. So we could pretty easily get A like that. We could also really easily get A just by testing them, right? So let's test a few of these just so we see what we're dealing with. So we know that A is right and that A works because we have an example. But let's look and find out why B doesn't work. So in B, we would have G beginning at 5 p.m. What do we know from there?
It would have
Okay.
to be
Oh,
6.
sorry.
Oh, sorry. 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm. All right, what else do we know?
L would have to be in 4th.
Good. What else?
We could put J at 3. Oh, sorry, 2.
Yeah, J would have to be at 2. Very good. All right, what else?
H would have to be in 3.
Yeah, H would have to be in 3 because it has to go after J. And we're left with F in 1. So it's an example that works, but it doesn't fulfill what our question asked. F is in 1. We're trying not to have F in 1. So B doesn't work. I'm going to leave it on there though, because it is an example of a sequence that followed all the rules. All right, let's try C. Okay, so H is scheduled to begin at 3. Interesting. Right off the bat, what do you guys think? Because I noticed that we already have a similarity here. And I know that J is going to have to go before H. And that J, if J goes in 1, then L has to go in 3. So J has to go in 2. And in my brain, it feels like we're starting to end up with the same situation because we know that L has to go in 3. So then from there, what do we know about G and K?
They would end up going at the last 2 positions, so it wouldn't be much different from the first.
Same, we just did the same thing again.
Yeah.
So C doesn't, or yeah, C, right? C doesn't work at all. It's the exact same problem. All right, let's see if we can at least get something new. Okay. So Jackson's audition begins at 2. Wait a second. Is that the same problem?
Same problem.
Is he even gonna give us the same result? All right, D doesn't work. How about E? Jackson begins at 5.
It's still
different.
similar problem, but it's a step above the previous one we just did.
Right, yeah, exactly. So if Jackson's in 5, I think that was, so if Jackson's in 5, we know that H is 6. We know that L is, oh my goodness, sorry about that. Okay, we know that L is 2nd, or sorry, L is 3rd. So everything's determined from there. And yes, exactly, F has to go first again. So it looks like in a lot of situations, F has to go first. So the one where it didn't, is the one that we have right up here, where G is first. It almost seems to me like G and F are our most common options for what goes first. That'll be interesting to see. All right. So the answer to 5 is A, and very conveniently, if you weren't sure and just wanted to test them all, the answer is A. So that wouldn't take you very long. Okay. 6. Which one of the following must be true? A lot of times when we see a must be true, we will have found the answer or gotten close to the answer in our deductions. So I want you to start there. And can someone walk me through these answer choices? Someone want to walk me through this one? We can look at the deductions that we've made and the previous examples that we have that work. So we've got 3 examples that we should keep in mind, and we can use those to eliminate things. So if anything on this must be true list isn't true in one of these 3, we can eliminate it. So does anyone see anything that we can eliminate?
We could eliminate choice. Actually, you know what? Never mind. Scratch that. Said before 5, so I'm not gonna choose that.
So we're
Oh.
looking at something that doesn't need to be true. Do we have an example of G starting at 5 or 6? That worked?
We do. It's right on what we just said.
Yeah, so it's right here. So if that's the case, then we can eliminate A, because it doesn't have to be true. G can start at 5 or 6, which A says it can't. So we eliminate A. What about B? Do we have an example where we can eliminate B?
Wait a second. Choice A is before 5. And we're at 5. We're circling 5.
Right. So, okay. So the question asks which of the following must be true. So we're looking to disprove these. So if we can disprove this and say, hey, there's a situation where it isn't true, then we can eliminate it. So A says, no matter what, G has to start before 5. So G has to be in 1 through 4. And we're saying, no, we have an example where G is 5th, where G started not before 5. So we would cross out A. Does that make sense? I think you said yes in the chat. Okay, so then looking at B, can we disprove B? Do we have an example where H is 1 or 2?
When I was doing the question, I didn't have one, so I just did it. But I don't think we have one on the board right now, so maybe we have to do that too.
Right, yeah, so we don't have it on the board, so we'll probably have to test it unless we manage to eliminate everything else. So let's look at the other ones first before we test. Okay, C. Do we have anything where H doesn't begin before 6? So really our only option is, do we have a spot where H begins at 6?
Yes, we do.
We do. So it doesn't have to begin before 6. Example 2 that we have has it beginning at 6. So C is out. All right, what about D? Can we eliminate D?
Yeah.
Which one can we use to eliminate it?
The third one, because it's asking if K can go like before 6, and we have one with K on 6.
Yeah, so it's asking if K has to go before 6. And we're going to say no. K can be 6th. Awesome. So D's out. What about E? Can we eliminate E?
Not at the moment. Yeah.
All right, now we're between B and E. We made that a lot easier for ourselves by looking at our previous examples, because that meant that we didn't have to go through all 6 of them, which can be super tedious. So that's the reason that we want to keep all of our previous examples that work. We want to keep them nice and neat on our scratch paper. Usually if I have something that doesn't work, I'll put a little X over it, so I don't try to look back at that and use it as an example. So while you guys are practicing logic games this week, organization is a big thing to practice on, so that you can then use these later and see where they are and know that they're options that work. Okay, so let's test B and E. So does anyone have an idea on like how we should test B?
I just started writing it out. Like I put H on 2.
Okay, so we're trying to disprove it. So we're trying to say it doesn't have to be after 2. Yeah. So we can test it with either H on 1 or H on 2. We might need to test both, unless the first one that we test works.
Yeah, I think when I was doing the question, I figured it had a better chance of working if H was on 2. So I kind of went with that first.
Yeah, I mean, we can
yeah.
look at rule 1 in our deductions. We know that H can't be in 1. So we probably, if we saw our deductions, we wouldn't even have to test that. If we didn't, then we would. But yes, you're right. So what do we know now? So H is in 2.
We know
What?
that A is in 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then we know that L would have to be in 3.
Good.
There's only 1 placement, and then G would have to be in 4th.
Okay.
Then leaves F and K for 5th or 6th.
Yeah. So that works. So it does work to begin Herman's audition before 2 p or at 2. So does B have to be true?
No.
No, it doesn't. Exactly. So I'm actually just going to put this here. So B doesn't have to be true. We have an example where Herman's audition didn't begin after 2 p.m. All right, so that puts B out. We know at this point that the answer is E, but we have the time, so let's check it. Again, like always, if you have the time to check something, check it. It's usually worth it, but let's check it. So, sorry, I'm running out of whiteboard space. All right, so we want to find a situation where L doesn't have to be before 5 p.m. So we probably have to test L in both 5 and 6, unless y'all can tell me a reason, just by looking at our rules, that we wouldn't have to do that.
We can look at the combination of rule 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm. And we know that what?
If you were to put L in 6, where would the placement of K go? K can go.
Very good. So we only have to test L in 5. Exactly. Oh, not the number 5. We're testing L. Okay. So if the L is in 5, what can you guys tell me?
K would have to be in 6.
Which one would?
K would have to be in 6.
K, yes. Sorry, I thought you said A. I was like, that is not a letter we have. Okay. So K would be 6. And then what else?
G would have to be 4.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, keep going.
Let's see. So then you would have J in 3rd.
Good.
And then we have what, like F and H last, I think. It's F and H.
Mm-hmm.
So then I would say, that's interesting.
What do you see?
I see that the issue with J being in 3rd, which is J should be before H.
Yeah, very good. So with L in 5th, there's no way to have J before H, because all these things that we put down had to be true. They had to be where they were. Perfect. So you found the problem. So it looks like it's true that L has to be before 5. It can't be 5 or 6. Does that make sense to everyone? So the answer choice then, the one that must be true, is E. L has to be before 5 p.m. Is everyone following? Okay. I will take that as a yes. So I believe that is the end of that game. So does anyone have any questions about that game overall? Because if not, we will move on to a different one. Okay, I see thumbs ups. Brilliant. All right, I will take that as no one has any questions right now. So in that case, let's move on to a different game. I think we'll probably stay in this question or in this section on this test. So let's try. Okay. If everyone wants to turn to the next question, we will do game 2 in this question set. Sound good? All right, awesome. Thumbs up. I like that. I need the affirmation. Okay. So let me change the questions. We're starting with question 7. I don't know what the ending question is, and I doubt we will get there. So question 7 to question mark. All right. So everyone give me a thumbs up once you're there. I assume you're probably there because it just meant going to the next question. So I know y'all don't have this one prepared, so you haven't done it yet. I did not know that one was going to be quite so quick. So does someone want to take a stab at telling me how they might set it up? Or what kind of game it is, or any of the things we need to know at the beginning? Does anyone know what kind? Oh, go for it.
Oh, sorry. The way that just from reading it, and not starting it, but the first part in the stimulus where it says that each piece of furniture is moved by 2 people, I feel like I would use the variables of recliners, sofa, and table as like the main ones, and then have 2 spaces next to it or something like that.
Okay, yeah. So I think I understand what you're saying. So let me draw it out and then you tell me if that's like not at all what you're saying. But I might do it like that. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, that's the same thing basically, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good way to do it. So we've got a grouping game here. Which is honestly in my mind hard to tell when you're reading it, but pretty easy to tell once you've drawn it out. So we have a grouping game. We have 3 pieces of furniture, the recliner, the sofa, and the table. And then each of those pieces of furniture has 2 slots for people carrying it. So Grace, Heather, Josh, and Maria. And the other thing that we need to keep in mind is each of them needs to be on there at least once. Does that make sense? Okay, sorry, my phone decided that I was driving, and apparently you are not allowed to talk on a Zoom meeting if you're driving. So can everyone hear me again? Can I get, okay, awesome. Sorry about that. I am not driving, I promise. Okay, so back to this. So we have Grace, Heather, Josh, and Maria. So starting with rule 1, how do y'all think you might diagram that? This is a bit of a more complicated rule.
The way that I did it was that I used subscripts. So I put H with a subscript of R and then an arrow pointing to G with the subscript H. S.
Yeah. So if H does the recliner, then Grace does the sofa. And then we know with if and only if, and y'all might not know this, but with if and only if, it works both ways. So if H does the recliner, then G does the sofa. It also works to say if Grace does the sofa, then H does the recliner. We know that's not usually true with just if-then statements, but this is how if and only if statements work. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we want to keep that in mind. If but only if statements don't come up a ton, but when they do, they're technically two separate rules. So can someone tell me the contrapositive for both of these rules?
For the first one, I guess the contrapositive, you just reverse and negate.
Yeah, exactly. So what would that look like here?
Well, I guess if not GS, then no, like no HR.
Yeah, perfect. All right, and then what about the other one?
No HR, arrow to no GS.
Brilliant. All right, very good. So someone tell me how you would diagram what is technically the second rule.
If JT, then MR.
Yeah, very good. So if JT, then MR. I also would use subscripts. That's how I would usually do it, but you certainly don't have to. So if there's a different way that works better for you, that's awesome. I also am using lowercase letters for one set and capital letters for the other. That helps distinguish it in my mind. So again, you don't have to, but I found it can get really confusing if you don't do that and you just have two sets of capital letter variables or two sets of lowercase. So just that makes sense. What would the contrapositive for that rule be?
If no MR, then no JT.
Yeah, very good. All right, we're getting somewhere. And then what about rule 3? This is a bit different. How would we diagram that?
I would put in G over J in a box, and then I would pretty much do a diagonal line indicating that these two can't be grouped together.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I definitely like putting them in a vertical on top of each other because that's the way that we did our diagram initially. So yeah, does that make sense to everyone? Yes, cool. Okay. So are there any deductions that we can make? I'm seeing some things with the GJ situation. Does anyone see anything? So we know that if H does the recliner, then G does the sofa. Do we know anything then about J? Any ideas? So for this one, if G does the sofa, then we know that J cannot do the sofa. So I might note, not J sofa. For the third one that we have here, do we know anything about G? If J does the table, what do we know about G?
G can't do the table.
Yeah, very good. So those are kind of straightforward deductions. They seem kind of silly, but they're good to write down just in case they come up. Just so we have them already deduced in our brain. Perfect. All right, let's move on to question 7. So does someone want to walk me through this one? I know y'all haven't done this game before, so no judgment. But let's have someone try to do this one. So remember, this is the type of question that we're going to go rule by rule to see what we can eliminate.
I can try. So the first thing that I would probably do is just because the GJ rule is the easiest, I would look for which one might have that so I can eliminate it. And I saw that B does.
Very good. So right off the bat, B is gone. Okay. What else?
And then I'd probably then just start going from the top. So look for H on R, which C has HR, but it does, and then it has G on S, so there's no problems there. And then I guess you can look at the other rules like J on T. So then, yeah, I'm not seeing any problems with C, although if J is on T, then M has to be on R, so actually C is wrong.
Very good. Yeah. So if J is on T, then M is on R. So C is out. All right. What else?
So J on T, I'm not seeing J on T anywhere else. Maybe you'll look for like G on S to see if there's any rule breaks there. And I see E has G with S. So then H is supposed to be with R and it's not, so I would eliminate that.
Good. So now we're
And
between
then-
two.
Oh yeah, yeah, sorry, I was just gonna say the same. Okay, yeah, so now is probably when I would like be a bit stuck.
Okay. Yeah. So let's just look at A and D and go through each rule separately with them. And then there may be something else that's the problem here. Let me see.
There,
Go for it.
if you look at the HR leads to GS,
Hmm?
that is not the case with choice D.
Exactly. Very good. So when we at first don't see it and we're between two, we definitely want to go back over the rules for each one of them because it is easy to miss. So that's perfect. So you got D out. So then let's super quick check and make sure that A fits. So if H is R, well, H isn't R, so we're fine. If G is S, G isn't S, so we're fine there. If J is T, J isn't T, so we're good there. And then G and J are not together. So A looks perfect. And the other thing that we want to check, because there's a subtle rule in here, there's also the rule that each one of them has to move at least one piece of furniture. That's technically a rule. So I'm not sure how you would want to note that, but that's something that you want to keep in mind. So sometimes they may have an example that only uses 3 of the people, and that's why it would be wrong. But that's harder to see because we didn't write it down as a rule. Does that make sense? Everyone following? Okay. Yeah, awesome. All right, so 8. Does anyone want to take a stab at it? How should we start 8?
I guess I can try. So I put J and M under R just from reading the question, yeah.
Perfect. All right, so now we're looking for which one must be true. So let's see if we can figure out what the rules want us to do from there. So do we have, are we triggering any rules based on what we have right now?
Yes, we are. We're actually triggering rule number 1.
Okay.
And I state rule number 1 because if you have GS, if you have a G under S, you'd have to have H under R, and we've already filled in the spot.
Yeah. So we're actually, yeah, we're triggering this part of rule 1, right? So we're saying, well, we don't have H and R, so we can't have G and S. So where does G have to go then?
Yes, going under T.
Yeah, very good. So we have G and T. So now what do we learn?
That J can't be under T.
Good. Does that trigger any rules? Might, it might not. Just take a peek. So not that we can tell, because it's not in T, so it doesn't trigger this one here. So we're kind of left there. So let's check and see if what we've figured out gives us the answer. And if not, then we might have to test some things. So does anyone see the answer of something that must be true?
D.
Which one?
D.
D. Yeah, exactly. So D as in dog has to be true here. So Grace has to help move the table. So it sounds like there weren't other deductions necessarily that we could have made. So we got it. There's an example of something that works. Perfect. All right, let's try to do 9, then we'll probably be done. Okay, so does someone want to walk me through 9? Take a stab at it. Someone who hasn't done one in a bit, if you feel brave enough.
I can help.
Yeah.
It says if H is going to move each, so you put H in all 3 of them,
Good.
and then you can put G and F because that triggers 1,
Very good.
and then with J, you put the JT, and then the MR,
Good.
and that leaves answer B.
Yeah, perfect. So B, Maria
Write that
helps
down.
minor. So question for you, does it have to go M and J like that, or could they switch places?
You can switch it if you wanted to, but
Yeah, so they could be,
but
so
you're
that-
looking for it could be true, so
right.
and not a must be true.
Yeah,
So
perfect. Yeah, so you got it. So the answer is definitely B, and that's because it is a could be true. If it was a must be true, all I was trying to get you to see is that those don't have to be right, right?
Yeah.
But yes, that way that works, and that's a way that gets us our answer. So we're perfect there. All right, awesome job. If y'all want to finish this game, you can. It's definitely a good practice game. But I will see you all next week.